The phone conversation between fantasy veterans Bob Harris and Matt Waldman is a quick and dirty rundown of players, units, or teams from Sunday's games. Feel it or fuck it is our instant verdict on the fantasy value of a player or situation, not the ability, effort, or character of the player. This is just how two old-timers in this industry talk when they got a lot to cover in a little time.
Good morning, Matt Waldman. How are you, sir?
I'm getting well rested, I'll put it that way. I just spent all day binge watching Upload from Amazon, which was created by a show I've been asking you to watch, you know, maybe when you retire in about 50 years, The Office. But yeah. Pretty good, though.
The Office, yeah. So I have a list. It's Seinfeld, Friends, and The Office, all of which I've never watched.
I'll put it to you this way. This will just tell my frame of reference, okay? By far, The Office way up here. Seinfeld's pretty darn good. You can put it up here. I've seen enough of Friends, just to tell you, like they don't belong on the same list.
Seinfeld's good enough. It's been around long enough. I mean, even having not watched it, some of the lore is permeated into your head, right? So there's things like that. And I suspect the same of The Office. I just don't realize it because it hasn't had enough time for me to all be explained to me. But anyway, let's explain some things about football, Matt.
Let's do it.
The draft is over. There is a post-draft rookie scouting portfolio available for download. Matt, tell them what they'll get if they do that now.
Yeah, in addition to the pre-draft tome where you get evergreen content with 150 detailed profiles on prospects, and that's available along with this for $21.95. This post-draft gives you a cheat sheet that's tiered. It also has rankings and tiers. It's on 2 pages, and it covers over 220 prospects. You even get a sweet spot ranking. So I look at, about 10 to 12 different drafts that happen the week after the NFL draft or as the draft's going on, and I take their ADP, I compare it to the ADP of what I do to re-rank these players now that they fit and we know where their fits are, and I give you the difference so that, for instance, if I think that Dalton Kincaid is a first-round pick, but say, for instance, the fantasy industry felt like, or the people who did these drafts felt like that he was a third-round pick, it gives you a number that gives you kind of the sweet spot of like how many picks after the ranking I have or before the ranking that I have that you should take him so that you can get as much value as possible. And I go over, like I give you probably 20 pages worth of analysis of who were good fits, bad fits, who are players that I think have kind of boom bust upside that maybe it's, there's some iffy things, but you should consider them. Underrated, overrated players, projects, even guys who maybe I didn't go through the whole RSP process with, but another 70 to 80 guys that I watched some film on before and after the draft and basically gave you a ranking within that tier of all the undrafted free agents that signed with teams as a kind of a separate tier after everybody else, and gave you some ideas of guys that you want to keep an eye on for training camp that nobody's talking about.
I have been reading mine and enjoying it immensely, of course. And so we'll get into perhaps some nuggets from that here as we go through the Feel It or Fuck It session of this program. And by the way, he's Matt Waldman. I'm Bob Harris. Find me at Football Diehards. We're working on magazines. They'll be out soon. Pro Forecast, 34th year, and we'll include work by Matt Waldman.
One of the most worthwhile things that you'll find at the stores that these things are available at is in the newsstand section. That's for sure. Check it out, and if you don't know what a newsstand is, you should head on outside a little bit more.
There are still things called stores, people. They're great.
Yes.
Kadarius Toney. Some people think he's great. The Chiefs, apparently among them, believe that he is capable of being a wide receiver one. Good health is, obviously part of that equation. But from the skill set perspective, I feel like, Matt, we've been looking at pretty much any receiver who plays, with Patrick Mahomes as having this, ability to be a wide receiver one any given week. Do you think Kadarius Toney can emerge as a consistent wide receiver one in this offense?
Oh, I'm totally feeling. I think Kadarius Toney could be one of the best wide receivers in the league, period. The thing is hopefully you get him at the discount because there's going to be a severe amount of pessimism or skepticism regarding him
That.
being able to stay healthy, whether or not he's not mature enough, whether he's a mature enough individual, not a knucklehead. If those things work out, you're going to get him at a discount this year. It's next year where the big issue is going to come into play. Is he going to be a guy who's buying into his own hype and not mature enough to handle it? So for me, as long as the earlier you can get him, the better the deal is. Later in we're going to need to ask this question back in, when we get to August and start seeing things like Kadarius Toney is a top 15 overall player. If that happens, then you might want to put the brakes on.
In current best balls, and I'm looking at ADP from the last 2 weeks, or post-draft. I'll just narrow it down to post-draft. Kadarius Toney is wide receiver 39. I see some potential for upside there, and that's what we're after when we're drafting.
Yeah.
Tony Pollard is going off. I'm thinking about the right place. He finished inside the top 10 last year, Matt. Can he do that again?
He can, but it depends on how much workload they give him and how well he's adjusted, because there was talk over the past couple of years that Pollard was the type of back that if you gave him too much workload in a game, that he was a type of player that ran out of gas. That because of the way that he played, that he ran out of gas, and you kind of have to sit him, and he was toast after a certain period of time. But then again, you hear that from some of the coaches, and then you see actions that seem to go to the contrary with that. So there's room for growth here. I think that he could finish as a top 10 fantasy running back. I would probably say, again, like Kadarius Toney, if he's inside the top 15, that would be good. If you're trying to take him as top 5, I think you've gone way overboard. I would say anything from the 7 to 15 range is reasonable.
He is currently going off as running back 10, and I'm with you. And last year, Skip Pete, the running backs coach, basically said the Cowboys as an organization didn't think thought he was most effective in 30 snaps or less.
Yeah.
Right. So, and maybe they still hold that view. Skip Pete is now gone. But still, the coaching staff remains. The organizational view of him, I suspect, remains. That being the case, there is no Ezekiel Elliott. He could return. The Cowboys haven't closed the door on that, but clearly Zeke is out there looking for some money that I don't think he will get. So we'll find out about that. Ronald Jones is also on board, but so is Deuce Vaughn. Let's say the status quo remains. There is no Ezekiel Elliott, and Ronald Jones is there, and Malik Turner is there, Rico McDowell is there. The same guys are there. Is Deuce Vaughn being a fantasy asset this year? You feel or fuck?
Oh, fuck it. And I like Deuce Vaughn.
Why do you hate Deuce Vaughn?
But I hate Deuce Vaughn. I hate Deuce Vaughn's position in this particular depth chart, because he's in the same role that Tony Pollard was in, and now Tony Pollard. Do you really think we're going to stop? You think Tony Pollard's really just going to be in the Zeke role? And again, the Zeke role actually caught passes too. So but if they're in the Zeke role that people think the Zeke role is, which is not catching the football at all and pass protecting and running in short yardage, but not getting set up the way that Pollard was, there's no way that's going to happen. Pollard's going to be leveraged in the way that he works best, which is in the passing game. So why would you take Pollard off the field to give Deuce Vaughn significant touches unless Vaughn is just unbelievable? I think we're going to hear a lot of hype about Deuce Vaughn. I think we're going to see some big plays from Deuce Vaughn in the summer. But then when the real games start happening, I think what you're also going to see is that they have a veteran on the roster who's going to be able to break things up, unless a guy like Malik Davis or Rico Dowdle can stay healthy.
I said Turner. It's Davis.
It's okay. Who can who can supplement on the ground in more of a role that people think of for Zeke. It's just not Deuce Vaughn's time at this point. The ability to pass protect, I think, is going to be a big issue, and that's going to be a thing that you'll see 2 to 5 touches per game from him at most.
When you get to be my age, confusing your Maliks is very easy to do.
Sure.
Journeyman receivers, journeyman running backs, and apparently future journeyman quarterbacks. All the same to me, I guess. So based on everything you said, I guess you told me what you're really telling me is you feel I should make a change in my avoidance of Ronald Jones as the last round pick of my best balls.
No, him too. Fuck him too. I mean, between fumbles, between not being able to catch the football, he may have an opportunity. But again, if the depth chart stays the same way, Tony Pollard's probably going to see 12 to 15 touches per game. you're going to see 2 to 5 from Deuce Vaughn, 2 to 5 from Ronald Jones, probably 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 from Malik Davis. So you got me going.
I got you going.
Malik Davis, and then Rico Dowdle. He might be able to. I think he's the most talented of the reserves. He just can't stay healthy. But if you consolidate, he's the one that could consolidate all those other touches if he could stay healthy. But he hasn't yet. But for some reason, they won't churn him off the roster, which tells you they know he's talented too.
I tend to agree with all this, and just for the record, I did have Ronald Jones in my queue on the last pick of a best ball yesterday, and I just couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger. I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I could not. I went with the
USC Ronald Jones, absolutely, but the Ronald Jones that's been in the NFL, he can break some tackles, but the decision making just isn't quite there.
All right, Rhamondre Stevenson seems to be a guy that I feel like I'm maybe a little skeptical on. But the circumstances remain good for him. Are you feeling him as a top 10 fantasy running back?
Yeah, I'm totally feeling him. He's a skilled running back. I mean, good quick feet, really good decision maker. One of the better pass receivers in the league, actually, in terms of hands. He's getting used more and more. It's one of the reasons why they were willing to get rid of Damian Harris. And yes, they've got other guys on this roster. They're hoping for Pierre Strong to become a thing. But Pierre Strong is really kind of one-dimensional in terms of scheme. It fits what the Patriots do. But Stevenson, the Patriots are also a diverse running game, and Stevenson is very good at being able to execute everything, and he's a powerful runner with good burst. I thought he'd be a future top 10 back. I think he showed that last year. I think he's going to repeat it this year.
You should look at his rookie scouting portfolio profile. I can attest to that. So let's go back and just by the way, I have a problem getting rid of Harris. It's just
Yeah.
I gotta rally around the clan. My guys are always gonna be good. He'll be fine.
With a pocket full of shells.
With a pocket full of shells, exactly. Yeah. Kendre Miller being a fantasy asset this year for the New Orleans Saints. Feel it or fuck it.
Totally feeling it too. Because I don't think Alvin Kamara is going to play more than half the season at best. And then that means that Miller is going to get his opportunities to be working with Jamal Williams. Now, Jamal Williams is going to get to be the pass receiver, the pass blocker in this. Miller doesn't have far to go to get good at those things, but it may take a full year. It just depends on how good he is at diagnosing the different blitz packages and being on the same page. But he's going to get usage. And he's got burst. He's a good tackle breaker. He really understands instinctively how to follow a chain of unexpected events to a good conclusion for himself. And I think that they're going to find ways to use him and leverage his skills to maximize his potential early on. So he's a guy that I could see getting 8 to 10 touches in this offensive week, and that being enough to be maybe a running back 3 or flex.
Yeah, not knowing the full outcome, but suspecting Alvin Kamara is going to miss some time. That opens the door. And remember, both Kamara and Jamal Williams are not younger men. They were like 28 years old. Cooper Kupp, also not a younger man, still being drafted after Justin Jefferson, Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Stephon Diggs. Are you feeling that as a slight discount?
Blue light special, baby. I think so. I think that's and he's kind of been that way before, because it seems like that's kind of where he goes, is in that 5 to 7 range in a lot of drafts year out in the past 3 or 4 years, because either like, I don't think he was really a thing, to, he really is a thing, but can he really repeat what he did? That was so ridiculous, to, he's coming off of an injury. I think I think that with this team, we found that whether they have a good receiver opposite him or not, as long as the quarterback's reasonable, he's fine. And I think the quarterback's reasonable. But the fear is can he stay upright and throwing the ball?
Right. And if not, man, we all know Stetson Bennett's going to be great.
Yes.
I just drafted him based on the inputs of the rookie scouting portfolio.
I would say that's a good. It's a good buy.
When I say draft, it was an investment in a super flex dynasty league. Come on, people.
Yeah, waiver wire and redraft. He's a good waiver wire monitor. Yes.
All right, and I agree with that. And by the way, Cooper Kupp is my wide receiver 1 right now. What am I basing that on? I'm basing that on his weekly average scoring from last year. under less than ideal circumstances. You mentioned Matthew Stafford not fully healthy throughout the year. Didn't throw at all last offseason. He is throwing now, Matthew Stafford. I think that works in his favor.
Remember Jarvis Landry? Remember when they had those craptastic Dolphins teams where he was getting over
1,000 yards a game?
Yeah, because all they did was feed him the football. Well, this is a better version of Jarvis Landry, Cooper Kupp.
That's a win. Geno Smith finished last season as quarterback 10, currently being drafted in best balls across the land as a quarterback 15. Are you feeling the Geno skepticism?
I understand it, but fuck it. No, I don't.
I
don't believe that. I think people are waiting. I think they've seen too many videos of, like, Baker Mayfield, Scott Mitchell back in the day, Brock Osweiler, whoever it was that had like a stretch of good games, and they after a while they're just like, oh, he's just going to go right back down the toilet, now that he's floated up. But I think that Geno Smith actually is a good decision maker, has really grown his game. He's got the offensive talent around him. I don't think QB 15 is justified. I think he's somewhere between QB 8 and 12, and you might be getting a deal still.
I think so as well. I totally feel that. And remember, he completed on nearly 70% of his passes last year. Has a great receiving core that got greater this year. I think there's a lot to like here, and I think the Geno skepticism is not merited.
Can I add a point to this too?
Please.
Okay. So there are a lot of people that don't love the Jackson Smith and Jigba selection because they're like, the Seahawks didn't use 3 receivers too much, But let's remember something. The Shane Waldron came from the Rams, who used 11 personnel about 90% of the time when they could, for at least a couple years while he was there. And I know that Pete Carroll talks about how their tight ends are. And I saw this recently. I think it was Scott Barrett who talked about this and showed a quote that Pete Carroll was saying, well, we like our tight ends and, we want to get them involved. And the 11 personnel that Seattle's used in the past has been more like in the 60 to 70% range and not as high as you would like to see because they want 2 tight ends. First of all, I appreciate what Scott's reporting because I think it's important to note what the party line is saying. But if we're going to put our analysis hat on and the danger of maybe overthinking this, you've got an offensive coordinator who was brought in to do the Rams offense, and he only got, say, 50 to 60% of where maybe he would wanted to use that personnel because that offense revolves around a slot receiver. Name the slot receiver in Seattle the past 2 years. He was a second-round pick by the name of Dwayne Eskridge, and Dwayne Eskridge had a major concussion as a rookie and missed most of the year. They had no one after him. Last year, he was banged up most of the time. No one after him. So if you don't have a slot receiver who is worth your salt, then the one you picked is hurt, you're not going to get to use the offense you need to. You're going to have to adapt. And if you're the head coach of said team, are you really going to say to the media, well, that second-round pick we got is really just screwing everything up for us. We don't really want to go with 2 and 3 tight ends as much as we do. What's that message going to say as a head coach to the tight ends who you may need to rely on that you don't really want to use them, or to the slot receiver that you're hoping will come around this year? To me, that's kind of like just management 101. If you're quoting, I don't know Scott, and I know people who know Scott and have a lot of positive things to say about him, and I think that obviously he's a good analyst, But I would say, that's one of those things that maybe can be missed when you think about managing. That coaches are also managers, and they're not just going to tell you the absolute truth about everything. And I think that's worth just as a counterpoint.
It's probably the opposite of that, but there we have that. Point taken there, young man, and I totally agree with it as well. Justin Fields, we've been hearing talk. Matt Eberflus and Luke Gessie would like me to believe that Justin Fields is already making huge strides as a passer this offseason, working on his footwork, which seems like that's the place where the work should begin. Justin Fields making major improvements as a passer this season. You feeling that?
I'm feeling that he's doing the work, and I think that you're going to see improvement to a certain extent. But I don't think, I would say fuck it that those major improvements are going to show up on the field this year. It's going to take a couple years of really working on those feet for it to truly show up and sink in. But still, the guy is one of the best runners in football out, when he breaks the pocket, and he has better weapons. So I think those improvements are going to come mainly because he's got an upgrade in talent and he's going to have a little bit more time.
I tend to feel that as well. And DJ Moore, I still have some hope for him. Darnell Mooney, by the way, sounds like he might be ready for training camp, but it's not a sure thing. So but that's something to watch on. So I'm going to throw these out here and with the caveat, Bob Harris thinks the obvious answer is to all these, feel it. But I'm going to take Matt Waldman's temperature on feeling these players as immediate starters in the NFL. Week 1, day 1 starters. Bryce Young, feel it or fuck it?
Feel it, just barely, but feel it.
CJ Stroud.
Fuck it. Just don't think he has the core
Case
yet.
Case Keenum or Davis Mills, if not.
Oh, he'll be an immediate starter because he provided immediate starter production. That's what I was thinking. So, feeling he's going to be immediate starter, but fuck it that he's going to get immediate starter production.
Well, there's only one who's going to give us immediate starter production, assuming he's the immediate starter, and it's Anthony Richardson. We all know this, or at least I know this, or at least I'm pretending I know this. That's what I do really good. I pretend I know things. Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, feeling it. Totally feeling it.
All right. I think we're all on the same page. Like, this is the simple equation. If you're going to take a chance on a rookie quarterback, take a chance on the one who might be the home run hit. The other ones are going to be, even if they're fairly serviceable, Geno Smith is out there as the 15th quarterback off the board. Jared Goff is the 16th quarterback off the board. By the way, Aaron Rodgers is quarterback 14 right now. Russell Wilson, I might take a chance on him as quarterback 17 over Bryce Young or CJ Stroud.
Yeah, if you're taking any of these rookie quarterbacks over the guys you just mentioned, fuck that. Like, the lesson might be wait until do your J.J. Zacharias and late round quarterback strategy. Take one of those 4 guys and then get one of these, one of these 3 rookies as your backup if you're in a 1 quarterback league.
It still works. We just did the serious post-draft, and we, all the hosts get on there and do a draft, and I'm trying to remember who it was. I should bring it up, but somebody did that just to make that point. Got their 2 quarterbacks, and normally in a shortened draft you wouldn't take 2. He took 2 at the last 2 picks, I think 11 and 12, just to make that point. Had really great quarterbacks in rounds 11 and 12, Daniel Jones and maybe Geno or someone in that same tier, and to make that point. So yes, it is a thing. You're going to see Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts all going off before the middle of the 3rd round, at least in early drafts. So I'm guessing in home leagues that'll you'll see one or 2 of those in the 1st round. So watch out for that. Quentin Johnston, Matt. The Los Angeles Chargers rookie wide receiver drafted in the 1st round. Is he going to be a fantasy asset this year?
2 wide receiver leagues, fuck that. 3 wide receiver leagues, feeling it, but ultimately going to say just short of it, so fuck it. But if he's in a 4 receiver where you get that extra flex, I'm feeling it. I think he's going to be in that wide receiver 36 to 48 range. It just depends on whether he gets touchdowns. I think the realistic upside for him is a wide receiver 3, mainly because the Chargers haven't supported 3 fantasy assets at the wide receiver or wide receiver at wide receiver position, especially with that tight end that they do have in Everett. I just think that it's going to have to take an injury, and he may have to play out of position for what he does best in order for that to happen. And I think he's at his best probably going to be in the slot, and that's still going to require some, how would I put it, some diagnostic skills that he hasn't had to show at TCU as mainly an outside guy. He's going to have to be on the same page with, with Herbert in terms of adjustments. So yeah, I would say 4 wide receivers, feeling at 3, I would take the chance.
And I'm going to dip into the Bob Harris file of speaking something into existence situation here. Here we go. Pull this out of my special folder. Zach Kuntz's chances of emerging as a legitimate red zone weapon this year for the New York Football Jets.
I think that's possible, but it's a low upside thing, and I'll say it because I think you're right about the player. I think in terms of what he can do, But I think that we forget that Tyler Conklin actually
that
was
last
that
year.
guy at Central
Right.
Michigan and hasn't been used that way because he hasn't had a quarterback who knows how to throw those balls with the trust, and now he does.
Damn it. All right. Luke Musgrave over Tucker Kraft.
Yeah, I'm feeling it just barely, but I'm feeling it. The big thing with him is you're going to get more separation from Musgrave in terms of the speed that he has. He's definitely a sure-handed guy. He's run maybe a larger variety of routes than I saw Tucker Kraft run, but Kraft's the type of player that's talented enough that if the things that he needs to show, he can show quickly, and I imagine he can. He's going to muck up the entire works of this tight end room for fantasy assetry.
Let me take a step backwards then, just in this particular circumstance, and just see how you're feeling, what your thoughts are on the approach the Packers are taking here with surrounding Jordan Love with a kiddie core of receiving talent in hopes they grow together. Is that a wise path?
It is if Jordan Love has demonstrated in the quarterback room over the past couple of years that he's more than ready conceptually to lead that room, help install the offense, and really direct young players to where things need to be. But we haven't seen it on the field enough yet. He's a player he and Rashid Shaheed are the two players I want to study very early in the summer, now that I have some time and summer's here, that I can do that. And they're going to be guys I think I'm going to profile early on. But I would say I'd be a little skeptical with that on that question right now, just because we haven't seen Jordan Love enough of him to say whether or not he's ready that way. It may also be just I look at the Packers and they draft players. If on the surface you could joke that the Packers draft players who look like they should come out of central casting, or like a corporate PowerPoint video with paid actors performing jobs. They kind of look
Like a
that
bunch
way.
of Ryan Edwards.
Yeah, I guess so. They just they look like they should be models for a dairy company or a cheese company. It's going to build strong bones and keep you healthy. That's basically what these guys look like. I don't know whether they can play football. Actually, I do. Some of them actually can play football, but it's just having them grow with it. I don't know. It's kind of a lame answer, because that last time that really worked was Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning was a coach on the field, because as I'll end it, this little story is that Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf, the former GM Bill Polian, who is so beloved for his ability to identify Lamar Jackson as a wide receiver or a running back, actually was a pretty good GM back in the day, and told a story about how when they had a meeting pre-draft with both those quarterbacks, Manning and Leaf, that Manning came in with a briefcase, asked him, "Can I ask you some questions? Because I have some questions before we get started." He said, "Sure," and proceeded to spend the entire allotment of time interviewing the GM. And one of the questions that he asked later, he goes, "Listen, I know that there's a certain allotment of time that I'm not allowed to be in the room or be in the facility until after the draft." He goes, "But I just need you to know, I don't really care about that rule. I'm going to be here, so I just need to know how are we going to arrange for me to get into the building, because I'm going to be here to work day after the draft. Like, how's that going to arrange? I don't care if you know or not, but somebody, I need you to know that I'm going to be here." And then when they asked Ryan Leaf, they said, "When do you plan on coming in?" He goes, "Well, I planned a vacation to Vegas with my buds like a year in advance, and I thought I really want to be here about 8 days later than when we're supposed to be here. Is that going to be okay?" That's kind of the difference of mentality. I just don't know if Jordan Love has that Peyton Manning mentality, because only Peyton Manning and Tom Brady really, and Drew Brees, are guys that I know had that kind of mentality that early on.
There you have it. Matt Waldman said so, and I believe it. Also, he mentioned a hallowed name in this draft area, Rashid Shaheed, currently on about 27% of my many best ball rosters. So hoping that comes to fruition.
Listen
All right,
to
young
Bob
man.
Harris, you're a smart man.
Be careful. Be careful, kids. It's a dangerous game you're playing here. All right, that's it. Feel it or fuck it over for this week. We'll be back next week. Go to the rookie scouting portfolio, mattwaldman.com. Get your rookie scouting portfolio, post-draft edition right now. It's fantastic. You heard it from me. Goodbye. Love you, man.
Love you. Bye.